Welcome to Moss Marketing Mondays, a.k.a. the M3 Podcast. Brought to you by Moss Marketing Group, bringing you everything marketing every Monday. Stay tuned for marketing tips and tricks you can use today. The M3 Podcast, marketing knowledge to help you succeed. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the M3 Podcast. This week, we got Dre, Logan from the MMG Group, and we got Josh Baker. Glad to have you here.
Glad to be here.
I feel like our paths just recently have crossed, but I feel like the web of people that we know is pretty wide. And I think it's pretty crazy it's taken us this long to cross paths.
I would agree. Totally.
So I feel like you're involved in, I want to start off with all the things that you're involved in Kansas City. And that may take the whole entire hour, and then we just going to have a part two on your actual story.
Yeah, that's a crazy question. So business side, a couple tow companies. We got Jackson County Tow, Ron's Tow, Miller Towing. We have a Busy Bee Auto Salvage that's connected to our Miller Towing. Kind of got a little part in a tech company with my buddy Keon. Got the Fights, FAC, which is huge. That's huge in Kansas City. It's been going on for a while with me and Joe Wooster. Have an Amazon business called GoGo Logistics. It's pretty cool. We got a farm. It just doesn't stop. Coach full time. So
Wearing many hats.
yeah.
I feel that. So have you always grown up in Kansas City?
Yeah, always. But KCK and also Wide Open Magazine is probably another one that that kind of got me. We're probably in the same realm, a lot of stuff. KCK, Strawberry Hill, 8th Street. Grew up there for a while and then moved up north basically with my grandmother. So
Very cool. So when did you move up to the Northland?
I would say full time between about 14 full time.
Okay.
Before that I was kind of bouncing back and forth.
So did you go to college anywhere?
Nope.
No?
Just North Kansas City.
I'm kind of pissed I went to college next time when I bring up the question up. But so did you come straight out of college? Did you or straight out of high school? Did you know that you wanted to be in business and the endeavors that you're in, or like what did that look like coming out of high school? What did that journey start off looking like?
Man, that's definitely did not think where I'm at I'd be then. You know what I mean, kind of thing. Just came out of high school and really just trying to survive. Really, moved out when I was just turned 18. Lived with a bunch of friends, bounced forever, just kind of floated around business. I was running a bar in North Kansas City called Bar 12, and then started working at Jack Miller. I knew a lot about motorcycles. I was always into them. So I was working in the back shop. Well, Jack Miller was a Kia dealership in Jeep. The only reason we had motorcycles there was because the owner, Dale, loved them. So we had 100+ Harleys there. Well, the salesmen weren't stupid. They figured out that I knew about them, and I knew how to talk, so they'd bring their customer back, and I'd sell the bike, and they'd go get paid for it. So that's kind of my entry to a lot of that stuff in the car business, and just learned how to kind of be around people. Started watching Grant Cardone with one of the sales managers. It just kind of picked up on it, and kind of a weird deal. I drove a bunch of bikes down to Myrtle Beach. We were selling them, and get down there, and the two salesmen that were down there they were being jack-offs. They were just partying all the time, not just selling bikes. Get down there, and I outsold the sales manager. So I get back, and Dale's like, yeah, you don't have a job. I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, you're not going to work in the shop anymore. You're moving up here. Was a salesman for just a little bit, and then became the motorcycle manager and just started rolling. So
you start working as motorcycle manager at Jack Miller
Yep.
Kia, which, that was news to me. I didn't even know they ever sold motorcycles.
we actually were the biggest. So back then, in the early 2000s, Harley wasn't like it is now. So then you went and ordered a motorcycle. You ordered a 99 Fat Boy or whatever it was. It would show up purple. You took it where it went on to the next person because they were super hard to get. They were $5,000 over sticker. So we kind of made some buddies with a guy out of Texas at Dream Machines. Him and his dad would drive the country and buy motorcycles from Harley dealers because they'd buy volume. So a couple Harleys that are dealers that were smaller, they'd sell them because they can't get the big markup because they're in the middle of nowhere, Iowa. So we ended up buying all these bikes for basically a couple thousand over what they paid for it, and we'd still sell them cheaper than what Worth was selling them for, and they hated us because we'd have 100, 150 bikes sitting on, and every night we'd take them all out and put them out in front and then take it back all the way. It was terrible, but it was a good experience, entry level into the car business, really.
So I'm glad I didn't have to do motorcycles at night, taking them all inside and all outside. That doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun.
It's fun when it's warm or when it's not raining or something like that, you know.
So when the weather was perfect.
Yeah.
Which in Missouri probably doesn't happen a whole lot.
So 3 weeks a year you get to do it.
So did you progress into the car space?
I did. After that, went and worked at Van Chevrolet. That really taught me a lot. The Van Tile Group was just, at that time, was the biggest in the country. Started in used cars. But then again, there was no soliciting. There was soliciting. So they would hand us an hour a day. You had to go in this room, and they'd hand you a phone book, and you had to make calls and calls and calls. So you got used to just being told no all the time and then just talking to everybody else. That place probably taught me the bulk of my selling ability of how to really break a customer down and how to relate to them and just point of sell. You know?
I mean, I'm going to definitely sound like I'm beating a dead horse here on the podcast because everyone that listens to this all the time. I think that people should have to go into the car business for a stint of time because in today's world, people are so afraid of getting told no.
Yeah.
And they're so fearful of something like that I remember when I got into the car business and I'm just turned 18 and my dad started me in sales training 6 months before I turned 18 because he's like, you're going to be ready the day you turn 18 to get on the sales floor. I'm like, okay. And so I'm doing Grant Cardone training. I'm doing Joe Verde training. And I'm like, I'm sitting there watching Joe Verde training. I'm like, wow, this is the most dated videos I've ever seen in my life. But the principles of it were there.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm thinking like 18 happens. I'm going to start getting leads like all the other salespeople. I'm like, this is going to be fucking cool. And all of a sudden I come in and they hand me a stack of papers. I'm like, what is this? I'm like, they're calling like people that are like interested in buying a car right now.
You said that lead came in this
they're
morning.
Like, these are like 6,000 people that are in our CRM that are like
that haven't bought,
that didn't buy something. I'm like calling somebody and I'm like, hey, I know you submitted a lead a year and a half ago, and people would just cuss me out, yell at me, just all day, every day.
Oh yeah.
And my dad's like, you do not get to take lot ups, and he goes, you do not get leads, and he's like, you were going to call these, but it made me so much better at what I did, and I think people should have to experience that.
It definitely gets you comfortable talking with people and learning how to relate to somebody really fast, so where you can kind of get them at ease. One of my managers it's always stuck with me. He would, when I was first starting, he'd kind of come out and just watch you a little bit or kind of interact with the customer. And I remember he would just pick up on things. He'd be like, have a dirt bike shirt on or something. He'd start totally talking to him about the dirt bike. And the next thing you know, the person's like, well, can I see the car? Because like, this is great. But they were at ease, you know, and it's made it very easy for me to start picking that apart to where I can start a conversation, not be told no, you know what I mean? And I think, like you said, man, that's terrible. Like, I don't feel like anybody nowadays wants to even interact.
And the hard thing was, like, when somebody came on the lot, it was like, you could actually talk to them. Like, they're like, it became such easy conversation. I was like, when I finally got to where I could take lot ups, I'm like running out the front door. I'm like, these people are actually probably gonna be nice to me. I'm like,
they want to be here.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like so tired of making those phone calls to people, but you started figuring out those objections really quickly.
Yeah.
And it was like, it wasn't. I think training in today's world, everyone can go through training, but actual like real world application is completely different. And
your first few sales straight after that training, you know none of it.
Yeah.
You're like,
how did I do that?
Yeah. how did that happen? Yeah. Page 3 said I should do this, but this was different than the script they gave me.
The guy never said that. They said he was gonna say this.
How many times did you take a Foursquare back because you forgot what he told you to say?
Oh, so literally the first thing in the car business I got, the sales manager I had, the guy's name was Shane, and he gives me a Foursquare, and he's he's sitting in his office, and he was like pretty cool, but he like helped.
You could print out like a nice like Foursquare. Nah.
So he just like straight up like Foursquare, green Sharpie and everything.
Yep.
And walks out and he goes, "You said this in front of the guy." He goes, "You present our price, trade, money down, payment," and he goes, "You shut the fuck up."
First one to talk loses.
He goes, he's sitting in his office, and like through his office, you could, like it was glass, and you could see like right where my desk was. He goes, "If you say a word after that," he goes, "you were fired on the spot." And I was like, "Ha ha!" Like he's like, "No, 100%." He goes, "You were fired on the spot if you speak before then." And I remember going out there and I like sit it all down, and they told me that they wanted so much for their trade, and the number was not what they said. And I was like, "Oh my god, these people are gonna freak out." And I sit it there, and I'm just like.
Do I look at them? Do I look at the wall?
It felt like it was 15 minutes. It was probably like a minute. And you're sitting there, you're like, looking back at him. And then all of a sudden, the people were like, "Yeah, looks great." Grabbed it. Like, I was like, can you sign right there?
Initial.
And they signed. I remember it was a green F-150. And I walked back to him, and he's like, "Good job." And then he just starts printing everything up. And I'm like, I thought I just climbed Mount Everest. Like, even though I did nothing.
Yeah.
But it was just funny that was something that I implemented with every salesperson, that as
100%.
silly as it was, that you, most of the time, and like I see it in a lot of aspects of life, people build their own objections in their head.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
That was something I learned so much from Foursquare and going out and selling, was people would like, I don't want over a $500 payment. And realistically, the math on the vehicle they're looking at, that is not possible. And
They don't even know it. It's
well,
like
sometimes-
300. You come back, it's like $399. They're like, "Oh my gosh!" I'm like, yeah, perfect.
Or you would come back and be $700, and it's like, people would, "Yeah, I want a $500 payment." And so salespeople took it so literally all the time. And you had one of two people, they like legitimately didn't know, or like they 100% knew.
Yeah.
And they like said it in a joking way, and the salesperson took it like dead serious. And they like have on their sheet like a $500 payment.
He said only 500.
I'm like, at math, he gets 0% on this truck, which we don't have, and
we can finance it for 120 months.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, so yeah, that's not happening. And you take them out there, and the salesperson like, they're gonna be so mad, blah blah blah, and like they go out there, they walk back 2 seconds later with like, "I don't know how they took that." I'm like,
They're not going to be able to eat tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
but a lot of times it's like, it was just funny, like how much those things teach you.
Oh, 100%.
And like when I say the car business, there's so many different lessons to be learned with calling people and just getting told no all day.
Yeah.
For like a week, and then you're just like,
And then you hit a streak. You're like, "I sold 6 in a day, or
Yeah.
2 days." You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
you're like, there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh yeah. And then you're on cloud 9 for a day, and then you don't sell nothing again. You're like,
Yeah.
"Oh shit."
I was
The
hitting the gas
highs and lows.
station every single day going home because I was pretty pumped. Somebody like actually gave a shit to talk to me. I was like,
Just sitting at the counter of Quick Trip going, "How's your day going, man?"
"Would you be interested in buying a car?" Because
Yeah.
If you
I'm
ever
not
are,
making-
here's my car.
I'm not making any money. Yeah, but
For
it's
sure.
doing those things. And my dad's like, "Well, if you want your own leads," he's like, "you can come up here on Sunday and put your cards on
Oh my
windshields."
gosh.
So I started doing that, and then it's like, then I started having people call me off that, and I'm like, this is way cooler than that. But it's like, I don't know. I think it's funny how many people that we've had come on here, and how many people that like I see in business now that
Started in the car business.
there's so many of them that have a tie somewhere
Yeah.
in there that's like, yeah, I went and did this, and it sucked.
It's pretty crazy because, like I said, the Vantile group taught me so much. I mean, just their sales program in general, but how militant they are with their management and everything, and it makes for good shit. You know what I'm saying? So then my other buddy owns Dream Machines right now, and it is like a mini Vantile store. Like they're selling razors, but they are selling. It's crazy. Like I walk in and I'll laugh because I'll see them doing stuff. I'm like, oh my god, I learned that like 25 years ago. Like,
But it's like they were such a process-oriented store
yeah.
that, like, I remember with I knew people that had worked there, and they're like, yeah, they pencil you at 36 or 48 every single time out the gate. And I was like, what? I was like,
because they want that high payment first, and then they're going to lower it to 60 months, and,
Yep.
and then you already won.
yeah. So it's like that was just their process, and they're like on every single client, no matter what. And they're like,
selling a Z06. It's like $2,000 payment. You're like, Jesus Christ.
It's like, let me see if I can get it to 60 months.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
Well, let's see.
I don't know if I can do this.
And then they're like, we didn't even send it at that. We got 72. Would they like 72?
I had this from the beginning.
Oh, it makes you so mad. I used to have a sales manager mess with us like that. He can't. Their credit's terrible. You go in there and you close them, and he'd be like, dude, I can get him 60 months. Why would you do that? Like, God.
Yeah. But, no, so how long were you in the car space?
So from 02 to 08, well, late 07 to 08, I was at Jack Miller, and then I left, went to the Van Tile deal. Well, actually, no, sorry, I backed that up. So in between Jack Miller, I kind of left for a little bit. Just had a lot of shit going on. Left, that's when I went to the Van Tile group, and then I left and then came back, and then I was there till late 07, 08, and then the economy shit. And so then I went out to Casey Creations because Kim Suter had been calling me because of the bike space. They were biker build off, all that jazz. So he had no financing. So this guy was building $100,000 motorcycles, and the guys would come in on the floor, and he's like, yeah, it's $100,000, here you go, get financed. No one would ever come back, ever. Like, I'm like, how do you sell bikes this way? But every once in a while.
He's like, I don't really.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Somebody, once in a while, they come back.
So I went there, got his financing going. I mean, warranty, everything. And then we blew up. I mean, we went from one dealership, and then I think at the max we had 7. We had one Casey Creation in Naples, and then all the rest were like down in Texas, New Jersey, stuff like that. And we were selling bikes there, and it was awesome. And then we were there, and it just kind of got wiped out. 08 really kind of that smoked us. We did that in about a year, and then so going into 09, it was terrible. Financing dried up. I mean, it really changed the market a lot. So then I got out of that, went to the railroad. So the car space, going back to your question, I don't know, at least 7, 8, 9 years right in there, something like that. So learned a lot.
Yeah. It's a full streak through there.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I think people need to learn it, but it's also, I feel like it's kind of a black hole.
You can get trapped very easily. I have a theory. My theory is if you look at car salesmen, they're one or two ways. They're either awesome stand-up family guys or they're fucking degenerates.
Oh.
So
Big,
there's like hardly
big facts.
One of them, they're either going one way or the other.
Yep.
Pretty much, if they're not that family, they're working their way to degenerate. So
I think that, I mean, we talk about it at the office all the time, that our stint in the car business, the amount of complete degenerates I met was just absolutely baffling. Like, I would tell my fiance about it, I'd tell Madison about like the problems, and she's like, babe, this is not like real world. Like, she goes, like, we've talked about writing a book about it. Like, you would just have the most off the wall shit that it was a normal week. Like, if I rolled in on a Wednesday and somebody's sleeping in their car, and I'm just like, doesn't even surprise me.
In the morning?
Like, yeah. You pull in, and they're like, yeah, I never went home last night. Went to the casino, and yeah, I got $8,000 on the 15th, and this is like the 19th, and they're in my office.
Broke.
Like, can I get a $100 loan? And I'm like,
can you buy me lunch?
yeah. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, what in the world?
But $100, they can make that $100 last
Yeah.
2 weeks.
But it was just like,
What's the craziest? Someone selling a car doing the craziest thing while they're selling a car. What's the craziest thing you've ever seen?
oh, jeez. The one I want to tell, I don't really want to put that dude on the hot seat because a lot of people do know him.
Don't say his name.
Trying to think. I don't think I want. Trying to think of another one.
Do you have one?
Yeah.
Okay, you hit
All
yours
right,
first.
let's
I'll
hear
think
yours.
So when I was at Jack Miller, we had a guy named Keith down there, and I'm talking. He was he's good till about noon, and then he would go down to bar right next to bar 12. There's this little golf bar, and he'd go down there for lunch and just get lit. And he would come back, and they didn't care because he would sell 25, 30 cars every month because he had been there forever. So one day he's gone for like longer than normal. He comes back. He's got an appointment. We're calling him. We're like, dude, you got to get. We're calling the bar. We're like, tell him to leave. Like, tell him to come back. He comes back. we could tell he was off. Like, you can tell he was, like, drinking, whatever. But he wouldn't get real sloppy. We could just tell. Real red face and shit. So he sells his car, and he's being goofy as shit. And he comes in, and he's like, I can't do this anymore. And we're like, and he's like, fucking rubbing his legs like this. And we're like, what is going on, dude? He's like, dude, I took a whole bunch of mushrooms, and I'm all screwed up. He ended up, like...
At lunch?
Yes. Comes back and he sells the car. And then before we even know it, like, we're trying to help him. We're running back to the porters. We don't want him driving shit. And we're getting it all ready. And he's already back on the lot selling another car to somebody while his people are in F&I. And we're like, what is going on, dude? He ended up selling 2 cars. And then we had to take him home. We drove him home. Like, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
He's like, man, I couldn't sit still. I had to go talk to someone else.
So crazy. So crazy.
I think most of the stories that happen in the car business have something tied to drugs or alcohol.
100%.
But we had a sales guy once that he had a drinking problem, and he leaves, and he goes on a test drive, everything, comes back, and car pulls in, customer walks in by themselves, comes up, like, knocks on the door, and I'm like on the phone, I was like, yeah, can I help you? He's like, can I talk to you for a minute? I'm like, yeah, sure. I was like, I tell people, I'm like, hey, I'll call you right back. And he goes, I mean, he's going through a lot right now. And I was like, I go, okay. Like, well, I'm like, I'm kind of confused. He goes, he's passed out in the car. I was like, okay. I was like, I apologize. He goes, no, I really like the car. And he goes, I feel bad for the guy. And he's like, I'm buying the car. I'm like, okay. Like, so the guy was super cool about it. But he's like, yeah, like, if we just get the paperwork all drawn up stuff, he's like, your price is fair, everything. He's like, I'm cool with that. I'm writing a check. I was like, all right. And I was like,
that's a first. I've never heard of that.
So
That's awesome.
we had to get his family to come pick him up and everything. And the guy was like, yeah, good guy. I was like, and he leaves. And my
It
dad's
couldn't
like,
have happened to a better, like, customer.
the customer was like,
Like, not a total Karen.
yeah. But no, we also had a guy that would go at lunch and get absolutely smoked and then take naps in his car. But the dude was a nail sales guy.
Yeah.
And so then we're in Kearney, so we know everyone. We grew up our whole lives there. We know all the bartenders at every single place there. And she was like, yeah, that new guy you guys hired, he can drink. I was like, what do you mean? She's like,
at this point, we didn't know. We're like, what? Does he come here after work?
Yeah. She's like, no, he's here every day at lunch. Because his big thing was if he had a lunch when he started.
Yeah.
And I was like, what, does he drink like 2 beers or something? I'm like, he's not. She goes, dude. She goes, he was here last time. She goes, I think you put down 8 of them while he was here. I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, he was only here for like 30 minutes.
Fucking Franken tank.
Yeah. And then he comes up and she goes, and he's your guys' F&I manager, right? I'm like, no. And she goes, oh, he's here telling everyone he's the F&I manager. I'm like, oh, great. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it was, I mean, just.
And then you get another person where it's like they're not as bad. You're like, I mean, this is a lot better than it was.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just a daily shit show on that forefront. So you get out of the car business, you get into Dream Machine. After that, what do you progress into?
So, kind of weird. 08, smoked everything. Everything was drying up. I almost went and worked at Worth. I had a really good friend, Jason Williamson, that was running it. He like wanted me bad. Go up there, interview, take the job. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, dude, I'm done with sales. Like I was done.
So you went the railroad.
I went to the railroad. Was there for 10 years. While I was there, started the magazine. Well, actually, I didn't start it. I bought it from one of my buddies' dads. Completely don't know what the hell I'm doing. Thought it was cool as shit. Really, he did a lot of trading. That really intrigued me. Excuse me. And so started. It was really bad. It's called White Oak Magazine. It's all motorcycles. I saw the magazine space was dying because they were just one thing. So I was like, hey, I'm going to put everything in it. Art, music, guns, I mean, you name it. If it breathed fire or it was exciting, it went in there. So I'm telling him, I'm like, hey, I want to do this. He's thinking I'm fucking crazy because I've never done any of this in my life. And so he told me no. And he calls me up, and he always calls me boy. He's like, boy, next magazine you guys come out in a month. I'm like, okay. And he's like, you got a month to put it together. I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, he was like, you'll figure it out just like I did. I remember I shot the very first magazine. Almost all the photography in it, had no effing idea what the hell I was doing. And just started running with that. So it's kind of kicked me while I was at the railroad of, the railroad's a great job if you just want to do one thing, make about $100,000, and it just wasn't for me. I felt like I was working with a bunch of sheep, and no offense to anybody because I got a lot of friends that do it. I want more. So I started doing that and started kind of formulating a plan about 4 or 5 years in. Started telling myself, like, this isn't it for you. Like, we're going to do some stuff. And in between that time, I had, right before the railroad, there was a gap. There was a year gap right there I should have talked about. And I went and worked for a tow company because I wanted out of sales. And ended up right back in sales. But it was easy because, so I started my...
Like, holy shit, they need to tow.
Yeah,
like,
so, yeah, well, not even that, dude. Like, you know DJ Adamson? Mm-hmm. So DJ calls me, come work for me. I'm like, dude, I don't know anything about towing. He's like, dude, you don't need to. You know everybody. So I'm like, okay, cool. Go work for him and his dad. I'm walking in shops, and I'm like, damn, this dude's bought 3 motorcycles from me. He's like, hell yeah, I'll use you. So it's just easy. It's like, it's so easy. And my follow-up's good. You know how it is. If you got good follow-up, you're going to get it. Well,
we talk about that all the time on here.
Yeah.
That the difference between, like, great salespeople and great entrepreneurs and great just business people, 9 out of 10 times is follow-up.
Oh, 100%.
People are so piss poor at that in today's world that it's, I mean, I don't even know how you can emphasize that more. Like, you can tell salespeople till you're blue in the face, like, call people back.
Yeah.
Like, just do that. I'm like, I promise you, the sales forefront is so much easier if you can follow up with people.
100% agree.
Take care of current clients. Call them back. Like, call them up. And they're like, they would sell a car or they'd do something. And, like, you see it in sales forefront and everything. They sell something and all of a sudden, poof, they're gone.
Yeah.
I'm like,
They're like, what if something's wrong? I'm like, then fix it.
yeah.
I'm like, because if you fix that small problem, it doesn't become a large problem, where then they're just cussing you out.
Yeah.
And they think you walk on water.
We just used to, I mean, I know it's kind of cheesy, but like kind of how, you know, S2 does it. You know, they send out their cards. We're doing that back in the day. You know, hey, remember, I'll give you $100 bird dog fee if you send somebody in. And, I mean, you might not get all of them, but you get a couple. Somebody wants $100, I promise you.
Yeah.
I mean, it works every time. So did that, got into that space, helped build a really big tow company called Independence Tow. Just kind of didn't, it was awesome. I mean, it was great, but it wasn't mine. So that's when I went to the railroad and then kind of made my way through that. COVID kind of hit, and I was like, you know what? Larry that helps me with the magazine, like super inner and outer world stuff, like, you know, don't chase the dollar. And I kept telling him he's fucking crazy. I'm like, dude, I don't know what that means. And then finally when I was like, I just kind of one day just woke up and I was like, you know what? He's right. I'm not going to worry about my money. I'm not going to worry about my bills. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm going to do, and it'll all come. And so next thing I know, I just one day woke up and was like, I'm done. I'm done with the railroad. Done with it. Did the magazine. Started rolling with it, and then bumped into a guy that I worked with me at Independence Tow, Robert Jenkins, and he had just bought the tow company in Jackson County. So went there, helped them blow it absolutely up the first year, and then we made a deal, and I became partners with that, and just kind of went from there. And then in between the railroad, I had always done fights. I know that's what it's going. We're going to circle around to that. I sound crazy because I keep adding things, but I think it was probably 02, 03. Chad came into the dealership and was looking at motorcycles, Chad Osborne, and was just talking to me, and he was frustrated because he was really good at putting the fights together, and he knew all the fighters, but he didn't. He was a pretty good salesman at that time. He got really good later. But he brought me on. He's like, hey, will you do this, get sponsors, and I'll do the fights? And I'm like, I'll try it, you know. And then Benny, I'm calling Benny up. I'm calling all my buddies up, and they're like, yeah, fuck yeah, we'll buy a table, we'll do this, we'll do that. And then ever since then, I don't think since I started throwing fights, Benny's ever missed one. Like, I mean, he's been on board since. I mean, it's pretty awesome. And so we started doing it at the Beaumont Club, and it was really crazy. When they first started doing it, it was pancration. You could do everything but hit to the face. It was open hand. So it was like bitch slapping people, which I thought was way worse because like I'd rather be punched by a man than slapped.
Yeah.
But we did that for about a year and a half, I think almost 2 years, and then Kansas City let us adopt some kickboxing rules, modify them for MMA, and we just kind of ran with it and did it down there. And in between,
So on the slapping, were they still have gloves on and everything?
no,
Just
just straight up open hand. It's in pancreation is something they still do today and all over the world. So it's like it's just a grappling with. It's kind of like what combat jiu-jitsu is now. It's funny that people made this name up, and really it's just pancreation, kind of. But started doing that, and then in the meantime, Chad's like, well, if you're going to do this, you're going to train. And I'm like, I've never done any of that. I always played football, track, all that stuff, but never combat sports. Started training with them, and back then there was 0 gyms. So we're training in garages. And like I tell my guys all the time, you've never trained until you hit your head on a metal beam in the middle of a freaking garage and about knock yourself out. So I started doing that and then started fighting. He trained me, and then kind of some years went by. We did that, and then we opened a gym down in North Kansas City called Adrenaline Extreme. Had that for many years, and just went from there. It's so funny because everybody thought we were so crazy because we would do fucking fights in parking lots. I mean, we had a fight down at Westport. We shut all of Westport down, had vendors everywhere, and it was like, and back then they didn't really have rules. It was like a fucking monsoon, and the refs out there, and I'm talking, everyone's still sitting in their chairs, and it is monsoon raining in an open cage, getting it on. They're slipping and sliding into the cage, like, because they can't get their footing. I mean, we've done some crazy shit, man. And then he got into some insurance stuff. We kind of put adrenaline to bed, and then I started the fight circus. Started doing that. It was another crazy thing. We had pop up a huge circus tent, put the cage under there. We'd have bikes, cars, bikini contest. I mean, you name it, we tried to throw it in it, like just a circus.
he goes, I have a magazine that I put a bunch of cool shit in. He goes, what if we do it under a circus?
Exactly.
He goes, I think I could duplicate it.
Dude, and every time we added something even crazier. I mean, like adult bounce houses, like it was just insane. It was a good time.
I think we need to bring that back.
Yeah, we could. I still got it. Let's go.
He's like, got the
sounds
tent
fun.
ready.
Yeah. I will tell you this. My partner Joe in FAC, if you say to any good promoter that's done outdoor shows, if you ever say, hey, and they've gotten away from it, and you say, hey, let's do an outdoor show, they're like, fuck you, no, hell no, like, because there's so much that goes into it, and even with the tent, it's good, except for when it rains, it all runs under, so that everything's sopping wet. So we did that.
I think a rain fight would be legit.
We've done some crazy fights, man. We did one at St. Joe Harley-Davidson. They hired me to do one in August. Nothing over the cage, and it was so hot that you could see like the heat coming off the mat. That the referees let them wear tennis shoes, and because they were burning their feet. And it was the funniest thing because they'd be fighting and going at it, and one of them would like take another one down, and they would hit the mat, and they'd be like, oh, right back up, because it was so. Both of them were like, oh no, I don't want that. It was crazy. We had like 6 fights before everybody's like, we're not fighting. Like, this is stupid. In between rounds, we're taking water and trying to wet the mat down to cool it down. It was insane. Like back then, there was no rules, man. You could get knocked out and fight the next day. We'd pull people out of the crowd like we were talking about earlier. Like, we'd be like, hey, this guy dropped out. Here's $100. You want to get in there? Yep, let's go. So, and then we graduated to, Joe was doing KCFA. I was doing Fight Circus. The arena approached me. I knew some people at Odyssey, which is the radio station from 98.9. They were getting ready. Rockfest went away, so they were looking for something to tag on to. So we kind of formulated a plan. Me and him started FAC, and just kind of hit the ground running, man. I mean, it's 2 of the best guys that are in the business doing it. And it's really cool how it works. He's really good at the backside, and that's what he shines at. And I'm really good at the front side, and I mean, he's good too with that. He doesn't like talking to people most of the time. Joe's just Joe, but he's a great businessman, and we just went, man. And then we got picked up by the UFC, I think, our 3rd year. Went really well. Had Dana White come in, filmed a TV show. I mean, it's legit. I mean, they told us it's the closest thing that they've ever had to the UFC. I mean, they were really impressed, and it was awesome to hear them tell us that, you know. That means kind of made me feel good that we had made it, because I had so many people throughout the years who are like, you're just a stupid promoter, throws cage fights in a parking lot, blah, blah, blah. You'll never make no, you know, that
But at that point, you're like, you are right, but wait, there's more.
Yeah.
But I have a circus tent, okay?
Yeah, now I got a 10, motherfuckers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's kind of a real fast intro to a lot of things, a little bit of a lot of things. So
on the fighting forefront, I feel like from a business aspect, what does that always look like? Because I'm not really familiar with the promotion side on how that. I feel like that's a whole different. Like, what does it look like going from a circus tent to being in an arena?
nothing really.
Like,
Just bigger scale.
but like, how does that whole thing transition there? Is it just, hey, we got a seat at the right table at the right time?
Kind of like you now, probably. Your dad probably helped you get to knowing a lot of big groups of people, and then you've just taken it and multiplied it. So I think that we had, I mean, at the end of the day, man, guys are guys. They want to come see fights.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would have at the Beaumont Club, we would be throwing, and we had some badass fights there, but you would have millionaire dudes sitting next to people at a $500 table getting hammered watching fights. You know what I mean? So it just kept growing and growing, and then we just built that reputation, kind of like you guys are doing for your media group. It's just, once it starts rolling, it rolls. And then Joe had the same thing with KCFA, and then once we got from, he was at the Truman Building and I was doing outdoor fights, the arena approached me, and that's why we matched up, because that's a huge undertaking. The fight level is going to intense. Your lighting, you got to be on your game. And so that's why we kind of teamed up, because we made that circle. But as far as a business aspect goes, it's the same. You're getting sponsors from, you know, hey, you want to sponsor for $250 to, hey, you want to sponsor us for $7,500. You know what I mean? This is why you're getting their name out there more at a bigger level. I mean, you walk into any arena, it's pretty amazing to see your name blasted in a whole arena. So it's just on a bigger scale. That's what I would say.
So as that has progressed, like, and I'll tell any business owner, when you can catch momentum, run with momentum. And that is when that network starts widening. That's when people are putting the names out there. And like in the beginning, I remember the early days of MMG where somebody would post something like looking for someone in social media marketing or content creation. I'm like, hey, hit me up, like blah, blah, blah. Like now somebody posts that out there. There'll be 10 people in a comment section like, Moss Marketing Group, Dave Moss Marketing Group. But it's like that network just builds and that momentum builds. But I think that's also having a good name, that I think that you guys are building that name in that fighting space.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. You know, I mean, we definitely have, you know, before when you're doing a small regional show, you're trying to call and you're like, hey, I want this guy. I'm in Chicago. I'm not driving down there. You're fighting in a tent. You know what I mean? To now, guys are contacting us on the regular. Like, they're like, hey, we want to get on that show, because we have helped groom and produce so many UFC fighters already that they know we're the show. I mean, and I'm not talking smack when I say this. We are the best show in the region. From Minnesota to Texas, there's nobody that's better than us. And I'd put us against anybody else as far as our, from start to finish, because a lot of shows you go to, they could have a great card, but what you're not seeing, they don't have a crowd. They're in a freaking hotel ballroom. You know, like, we have the deal. And that's what, like I was saying, that's what impressed Dana, because him and his all the crew, when they came in, I said, well, what were you really surprised? He goes, well, normally we come here and it's a gymnasium. He was like, this is a freaking arena. Like, this is amazing. So that with people contacting us, with Joe being the way that he is, and I am too, with, you get a hurt fighter, you got to help them. And there's a lot of piece of shit promoters that won't help them. They'll break their hand, they'll break their arm, and they don't want to use their insurance. They say they got insurance, but they don't want to do it. We send them. They go get an ambulance, go. I mean, we're the closest thing that you can have to a professional series, you know. So,
which I definitely think the arena brings a huge. I mean, arenas just pull something different, like on a whole scale of anything. That would be like, that's the difference between going and watching a Pop Warner football game to your kid that's out playing in a field and everyone's sitting in lawn chairs.
Yeah.
To like actually at a high school level, it's even different. Like, and that's not even to the arena of what Arrowhead is, to where it's like there's a different energy at every one of those levels.
100%.
You can only have so much energy in a hotel conference ballroom.
Yeah, you don't have the speakers blaring. You don't have 275-foot by 100-foot all LCD. They're running everything. Badass. I mean, that it's. There's been a couple moments. I remember James Krause. When Dana was there, it was just a crazy day. And it's, when you get wrapped up in something that's just an awesome project and you're rolling and you're like, you have a hard time sitting still enough to really appreciate it. I remember like it's yesterday. He stopped me on the platform. He's like, you need to take all this in right now. Like, you need to stop and really think about it. And up until that point I hadn't, because I was just like, go, go, go. It's got to be perfect. This has got to go. And it's kind of stuck with me too. It's that awesome moment, because that arena there's a couple cool pictures I have of like this kind of camera shot, and it's just like, I don't know, it's just really cool looking out into a whole crowd of people that you put that there, so the arena definitely makes it. And I'll tell you what, like we were talking about yours, like a suite, the business that has had and been and can be had there is awesome, because you have so much time to interact with people on a personal level. And like all of our sponsors do really well there. If they actually use it and talk to people and do all that, it's great. They will sell stuff. And a lot of times it's not high pressure. It's just like, hey, oh, you do that? Cool. Like, give me your card. And the next thing you know, they're calling me like, damn, dude, I just got 3 jobs off that. I just got drunk with a guy. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Betting dollars on fights,
And you're already in a place of common interest.
Yeah.
So it's like, and that's when we talk about the sales side in the car business, when you're talking to somebody trying to find that common ground, trying to build that rapport, you have that built way before the sale ever even happens.
Oh, yeah.
You're standing there, if you guys are both watching fights and you're already interested in that, like, all right, guess we're buds. Like, we're having some drinks here. Like, this is fun.
The best is when they bring people like that, and like I've seen a ton of like moms, or like older moms, a couple grandmas, and they're like, I'm not into fights. I'm not into it. Next thing you know, they're like in the corner and they're like, "Rah, kill him!" I'm like, "Whoa, calm down!" Like,
Slow down, lady. I know you haven't seen this before.
Like, kick him in the head. I'm like, "Jeez Louise, what's going on at home?" So, but it happens all the time. And you guys will get to experience too when you guys come December 1st. That card's crazy. The arena is going to be electric. When you get 4,000 or 5,000 people in there, it's awesome. Like it.
So what goes into when you build these cards out for fights and you say, this is what we're going to put on? How do you guys go about like even putting that together?
Again, Joe and Scott, he's another one of our matchmakers. They'll look at, the last card. We had 2 heavyweight fights, a girl fight at 135. They'll look at what they had. They'll look at up-and-coming stars that we have in our pipeline at Ignite, Marathon, Glory, stuff like that. And they'll start, basically, we'll build one half of the card. And a lot of times the red card is all guys from Kansas City. And then they'll start reaching out. And they'll start matchmaking. They'll call their coach and they'll say, hey, we've got a Mike England, 170, does this guy want this? Most of the time they're going to say no, because Mikey's a savage. And then we'll get a couple maybes, and then next thing you know, we'll get one. Or they'll call us back and say, hey, we don't want 5 and 5, we want 15 and 15, and we want travel, and we want this stuff. That's kind of like looks like that's the one thing that I tell Joe all the time. Like, I love dealing with customers, because dealing with 30 grown men that will call you and tell you that they have a fucking hangnail and they're not going to fight in 3 months you're like, why are you calling me, dude? Like, this, you're good. You're going to be fine. But camp's crazy. They're emotional. They're cutting weight. They're training all the time. They're beat up. So they're just super, like, and I don't mean this in a bad way. They're just up and down. It's a fucking roller coaster. You get a week, you're like, I'm feeling great. And the next week you get dinged up and you're like, don't want to train. You don't want to, you're beat up. So I don't envy him at all.
That's one of those things. I watched it. That was one of the main reasons I never wanted to wrestle in high school.
Yeah.
Like I watched those dudes. Like I played football, love football, and the great thing was you saw the football players at lunch eating everything that they could get, like literally just feasting. Like I couldn't put enough on a tray when I would go eat.
Yeah.
And then you would have like a wrestler there with like this much
A piece
water.
of lettuce.
Yeah, and I'm like,
empty water bottle that they're spitting into.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
bro,
and they're
seriously?
sitting there like, yeah, I got cut weight all this week. I can't eat. I'm like, dude, I just ate like 12 mozzarella sticks.
Ham and cheese roll up.
Yeah.
Dane's like, that's insane.
That sucks, dude. Like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, I will never do that.
Yeah. I could never wrestle in high school because I didn't want to wear the singlet. Like I just
So
couldn't do the singlet.
I said the same shit. I was like, I don't want to wrestle for that, and I don't want to wear a singlet. And then I did powerlifting.
Oh,
And
mercy.
when I went
Surprise.
when I went to nationals, I had to cut down from like 210 to 198. So I get there and like, yeah, you're getting trash bagged up, and you're gonna sit there and ride the bike. So I sat there riding a bike with trash bags on forever, and then they come in, they toss a singlet. They're like, oh yeah, we all wear these. I'm like, fuck, got me.
Old school way of cutting weight, man.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I've learned through the MMA game is how to cut weight correctly. That's changed a lot. I mean, remember back in the day, they would lock you in a sauna and you'd want to kick the fucking door open. Because
What was the TV show with Chuck Liddell? They would all train and they would all be sitting in the sauna with trash bags on.
I don't know.
Was it the Ultimate Fighter? Like,
I don't
early
think he
days?
was. I don't know if he would. Probably. I mean, I think he was a coach on the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah,
actually.
so they would sit there and it's like you'd see them all like fighting and everything, and then it's like before weigh-ins, they're all in the sauna,
it's
trash bagged
terrible,
up,
dude.
and it's like
terrible.
they wouldn't let them out.
Yeah.
They're like, you're making weight.
Yeah, it's terrible. It'll cook you, man. Like it.
It
that's
fucks your head up too.
Yeah, dude, it's so bad. I remember. I can't remember. We were in Chile, and they're cutting weight, dude. And I remember going downstairs, and I can't remember which fighter it was, a little guy, and he's laying on the side, and there was like a tiny little crack, and he thought that he was gonna get air through there, and they're like not letting him out. And he's like, oh, dying, and that was, I remember that. But now they just put like what's it called? The sweet sweat. They'll put sweet sweat all over them. They'll stick them in a tub, and they'll start them on like 20-minute increments, and they'll get them sweating really, really bad, like good, really, really good. And because you'll sit in the tub and you'll feel yourself sweat. It's the craziest thing. And then they'll pull you out, and they'll take all the comforters that are in the room and towels, and they wrap you up, and you just stay in that little cocoon until you stop sweating, and they'll take you back out, and they'll put you back in the tub. And next thing you know, you drop 12, 15, 20 pounds.
So now they just turn you into a burrito.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm telling you, that was way better ever doing that than it was trying to be in a sauna and getting cooked.
Like I sit in a sauna every morning, like after I get done working out.
Way different thing.
But what I'm saying,
Dane's like, man, I'm in there forever.
No, yeah. What I'm saying is there's been mornings that like they'll attest to it. There's been mornings that I sit there. And the one here at Genesis is
It gets hot.
It's hot.
It gets hot. For
But like
sure.
me and one other guy are in, like consistently in there every morning.
Yeah.
And it's like I can stand there 15, 20 minutes like every morning. But there's sometimes I'll like take 2 waters and I'll see how far I can really push it. And dude, there's been mornings that it's like the sweat completely stops, and then it's like I'm coming home and my body's just like shut down and it's not turning back on. And it's like I'm getting to work and everyone's like, "You good?" I'm like,
Just
Really
you.
overdid it in the sauna this morning.
Drained you. You ever want to sweat? Back in the day, we had this guy that cut weight with us, and he showed us the wooden spoon technique. You ever heard of this on like a dry sauna? So you take a wooden spoon, like a big one, and if that wood's pores, and you drag it down and wipe it off. It'll pull all the oil out of your pores, and next thing you know, you're like, it just drains out of you. Like take any kind of like piece of wood or anything, it'll just pull everything off. It's so crazy. Like, but he would take a wooden spoon, he'd sit in there with a wooden spoon, wipe it off, and just pull all the
dude,
oil off.
if I'm sitting in the sauna, some dude sitting there massaging himself with his spoon, I'm like,
not massaging
I'm like,
himself.
I'm getting out. This dude's creeping me out.
He's staring you in the eye, just wiping
wink at him.
himself.
Just wink at him. But he just would show us little techniques how to open your pores up and stuff, man. It's crazy because you're like, oh, that ain't gonna work. And next thing you know, you just look like someone turned a faucet on your arm.
Yeah. So what would you say over all the years of the fighting forefront is the craziest thing that you've ever seen happen?
2 grandpas getting in a fight.
2 grandpas? Like how old are we talking?
Like grandpas. We were at the Beaumont Club, we have, and this is one thing we pride ourselves on. We don't have fights. Like, I never had fights at any of mine. I think we've had a couple of people be drunk and we had to kick them out. But like, legitimately we had 2 guys fighting, and one of them accidentally kneed another one while he was down. It was a mistake. Well, they called it because the kid was kind of fucked up. And these 2 grandpas started talking shit to each other because they were the grandpas of the kids. And they physically got in a fight. And the bouncers at the Beaumont Club didn't know what to do because they're so old and they're like trying to swing and it's so slow. And it's like they're just kind of watching them. We're like, hey, you got to break this up, dude. Like,
everyone there's like side beds.
yeah. This fight's going to take 25 minutes.
I got the one in the blue plaid shirt.
Yeah. So I would say that's probably the craziest. Or like a double knockout. That's only happened once. We've had 2 amateurs knock each other out, that's
crazy.
You kind of look. You're like, did that
That's like
just happen?
That's like stepbrother shit.
Yeah. Did that just happen? And a lot of times it's not even a crazy punch. It's just like something weird. They like threw a little weird uppercut or something. They both caught. That's about it, man. I mean, crazy wise, I guess. No real crazy stories. I mean, back in the day, you would have guys drunk, like all kinds of stuff like that. But now, they can't do shit now. I mean, now there's such a process between the doctors that see them before and everything else and afterwards. Back then it was just like, yeah, cool, you're alive.
You can't slam a 12-pack and then get in the ring?
No, not anymore. Not anymore. Not anymore. I mean, I've seen guys lose, get knocked out, and then and fight later that night, like back in the day, like straight up.
I lost the first one, but I ain't losing the second one.
Now they're sitting there, they can't spell their name.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why.
Well, I mean, and again, though, back in the day, you got to look at it as there was no commission. So there was no state commission. It was a couple guy, like one of them, Chuck Wolf, it was him, his wife, and his kids. So you paid his commission to come, and it was his family. And they would be like, yeah, cool, we're going to do a fight. And Chuck was like, he would let people die. Like, he's probably reffed, I don't know, 6 of my fights. And literally, I mean, you felt bad for people because they'd be getting beat up, and you're like, Chuck, he's asleep. Like, let him, like, stop the fight, dude. Like, it's so bad. But now it's not. It's just a sanctioned, no different than NFL or anything else. I mean, it's very controlled.
So do those refs have to go through like certain training and everything to do that, or is
I think the state. This is a huge controversial topic. The state does make them, I think, watch some stuff. I'm not 100% on that, but I'm pretty sure they acclimate them some ways. And then they do have to, like, shadow.
So it sounds just like when I watched that Joe Verde training, and then I had to shadow salespeople.
Hey,
Sounds
so
the same.
this is how crazy the UFC still is, and I wish they'd get control of it, but it's hard because they're all over the world. So we're in Dubai. We're riding back to the plane, and one of the refs from the fight was sitting next to me, and I asked him that. I said, hey, so what kind of training did you have to do for this? He goes, oh, no. He's like, from Germany. He's like, no training, just video. And I was like, video? He's like, yeah, video. I said, what kind of ref are you? He's like, basketball. I'm like, so you watched a video, they flew you here, and you're a referee for the UFC. And he was the referee for the title fight. Like, so that shows you like how that sport still has a lot of room to grow because they should never have that. Just like the judging. We've met numerous judges. There's a lot of them that have never reffed a fight. They're some kind of other state commission, some officer, and then they're at Madison Square Garden, they know somebody, and they're like, next thing you know, they're a judge.
So yeah, how does the judging work?
As far as you win rounds, basically.
Well, yeah, like I not on to the fight, but like how do you find judges for a fight?
The states all have their little like commission now. Basically, and the state goes out and they have judges, referees, and everything else that they allow to work.
And how are those people trained?
I don't know that. I don't know. I think they do. I do know that they do some shadowing too now. It's gotten a lot better. Before it was just, again, it's that sport's grown so much and so fast. It's like anything else. You're playing catch up, every time. So Missouri's been really good about starting new processes and procedures to make it better, but they're still lacking. I mean, but again, when you have probably limited budget, what you're trying to do, and they're all over the whole state of Missouri, so they're based out of St. Louis. So that crew, a lot of them will come from St. Louis, and they're going any point in Missouri. So it's probably hard to find people that pay whatever they pay to do that.
Yeah.
Julian Marquez fights for the UFC. He's fought for us hard. I mean, he trained
name
with us.
sounds familiar.
Yeah. So his dad's a judge too. So he's a really good judge. But he's been doing it a long time. You know what I mean?
I could see him being a good judge. He's around it every day and knows exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
Not a basketball judge.
Yeah.
I watched a video.
Yeah. I did. I watched Uno.
Yeah. I watched Uno for a while. I feel like I'm a pretty good judge now.
That's insane. I don't know what that has to do with anything.
That dude just threw down a reverse card. Man, reverse there. He's getting a point for that one.
I got 10,000 hours in Uno, bro. I'm savage.
Hey man, I'm just saying, if I played right now, you guys would be screwed.
So, what do you think the future of fighting turns into? From where we're at right now, I think there's been so much evolution from, especially with what you're doing, and from the sport as a whole. What do you see the future evolution of it looking like?
I think the fighting game, it's just going to keep growing. I mean, COVID was terrible for a lot of businesses and a lot of people. But what it did for the fight game is it put it on a whole other level. Mm-hmm. If you look at the UFC prior to COVID, they ran Saturdays and some Fridays for fight nights, and they weren't every weekend. So COVID, they found out that they were it. So they did exactly what you said. When you got momentum, let's go. And Dana White said, let's fucking go. And so now they do a fight every Saturday. They're almost on every other Friday. Like, it's crazy. And I would say in the evolution of the sport, it's just going to keep growing. The hardest thing that we're facing is it's kind of a double-edged sword. The UFC is the pinnacle. Everyone wants to get there. But the problem now is with the Ultimate Fighter and all these little tough houses and all this stuff that they got going on, no one wants to take, I don't want to say no one, we're having more trouble finding fights with higher competitors because they're trying to think that they're going to get launched onto this platform, so they don't want to take as much risk. Where prior to this, it was just a lot easier. It's stunning the growth a little bit, like we're seeing it now, but as a whole, I think it's gonna be huge. I mean, it's already huge. It's hard in the United States because fighting is still so new to us. I know that sounds weird, but like boxing's been around forever, but the UFC hasn't. You go to Thailand, I mean, you go to Japan, you go anywhere else across fighting is part of their culture. Like, that is their shit. Here, it's still real, like, kind of frowned on in some space. There, it's like, oh, your kids can walk? Cool, go kick trees and then kick that little kid to death. Like, that's how it is. I mean, but that's part of their stuff. I think it's going to go far. I think that if you still have good promoters, Zach Cummings, he's another great promoter here. He's got Synergy. You keep those style of fights going, you're going to have that younger group going. And it goes back to the gyms, too. I mean, it's not just the fight game. The elevation of the gyms that are in the cities now. I mean, when I first started this, dude, there was like, we had to bring a black belt over from Brazil, and he would stay with people for a month. Now there's 35 black belts in Kansas City. That's insane. Like, the plethora of that, as long as it keeps growing and multiplying, I think it's just, I mean, the sky's the limit. There's no stopping it. I mean, at the end of the day, football's great, baseball's great, but some of the sports, not football, but baseball, you can see it's on a decline. I think I don't know if it'll ever be as big as soccer, but it's challenging some major numbers.
Do you think that, so from a marketing aspect, do you think we're seeing it happen right now in NFL, where players are starting to figure out value and they're starting to figure out how to leverage marketing from a personal stance? Do you think that's something that's going to come into the fighting space? Because I look at Conor McGregor.
Oh, I think that dude's a wizard on what he did.
That dude was a marketing genius, and that's where I think his value came from. Like, I don't think you see a lot of these other fighters that have came out, but you don't see them out on Lamborghini yachts. You don't see them at that level. But he marketed differently, and he figured out how to leverage a personal audience. And I think that you look at what Patrick Mahomes is doing. You look at what Travis Kelce is doing. You look at what these guys are doing on endorsement deals that big, large corporate companies now, marketing strategies are going to putting a face that's familiar to people in front of them. And they're figuring out how to leverage that differently. So do you see that happening in the fighting space, like in the near future?
I think it's already happening. It's already happening. The problem that you're going to run into is just like anything else. I can be a great jiu-jitsu coach. That doesn't mean I can go run a business.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, unless they really have a stand-up, whatever you want to call it, family manager, somebody that's in that space with them that's going to kind of guide them, because at the end of the day, a lot of fighters are fighters. Football players are football players. If they were good at business, they wouldn't be playing football. But if they have a great coach, a great manager, a great mentor, kind of guiding them in that, it's already happening. I mean, Joe has a plethora of people that he manages, and that's all he does. I mean, gets businesses to interact with him, gets, sponsorships, stuff like that. It's like anything else, man. You might get 1 out of every 10 people that's a great salesman. You might have 1 fighter out of every 10 that's great at talking.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people have you met? They're like, I don't want to meet that guy in a dark alley, but he said 3 words and I don't know what they were. Like,
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's not being mean or nothing. It's just some people are blessed with other skills. So I think that it's getting better. Gyms are looking at it that way. Coaches are starting to look at it. And social media has taken it to a whole different level of being able to market somebody. So it's helping a lot. I think that it's going to keep getting better. I will tell people that are getting into that space, it's a long road, man.
100%.
It's a long, hard road, but if you get into the right gym and the right atmosphere, it'll propel yourself. I think Connor was always one of those guys that was outspoken, always told his truth, always told people what he wanted, and people started finally, after 1,000 times of hearing it, they're like, okay, well, this shit's probably real, because he won't shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like, and next thing you know, the UFC saw that, and then they just jumped on it. Again, momentum. They saw this little Irish guy, and next thing you know, they made him the poster of everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, Zach fought on a card over there, and he said that was the most insane feeling. I mean, there was like 60,000 people at weigh-ins.
Yeah.
Like 60,000. Like, it was insane. He said that it was the most insane feeling he's ever been around to have that kind. And that's where, kind of going back to the fight game outside the United States, it's, when you fight for Ireland, you're fighting for Ireland. Not to get into what's going on in the political aspect or our United States right now. I think we've kind of forgotten that. I think we do have fighters that embrace it, but it's not as prevalent.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So it's getting there, man. I mean, get in a space, get a good coach, get a good manager, make sure you do your homework, have a good team. You'll do good. I mean, Mikey's doing good. You know what I mean? And the guy, and he's got a great team around him. I mean, people want to be involved with guys that's a good guy. So,
which I think that a guy like that brings the fight aspect, and I think a lot of times in the athletic forefront, they're really good at capturing people that like the sport, but there's a way to start leveraging people that don't even care for that sport, that like the person.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
That you look at, you could go down the street and start asking people if they know Conor McGregor, and they're going to know him, and they've probably never watched a UFC fight in their life.
Yeah.
Or they say the only fight I've watched was the one that he fought so-and-so.
Yeah.
To where it's like they were following him. And it's same thing with what Mahomes has done. There's people that don't even like football, but they know exactly who he is. They see the commercial, there's no question of who he is. To where it's like, I look at those people that you can have the talent, you could be the best in the biz and whatever you're doing on the fighting side, everything like that. But then it's like, I feel like those people are given a golden ticket.
I'd agree with that.
And it's like, the forefront that we took on, I didn't have a golden ticket to what we were doing. I was like, we have to grind all day, every single day, to try to get this push forward. Like, we had a buddy of Logan's on here that plays for the Raiders. And when he came on, the first reel went up and it was like, whew, to the fucking moon. I was like, damn.
That's awesome.
I go, when you collab with them, it just takes off.
Yeah.
To where it's like they have that personal presence already that they're walking into a stadium with 60,000 eyes on them.
Yeah.
Knowing who that name is. And it's like, I feel that in the athletic forefront, these people are given something that not everyone's capitalizing on right now.
I would agree with that, you know, and, and what you're going to come up with a lot too is, you know, the UFC is the pinnacle, but they're also the alpha and omega and they control. And, you know, no dig on them, but they're probably not always the best of doing that because they're it. They want them to be it, not a Conor McGregor. As much as they love Conor, they hate him because they can't control him. They can't. He holds the keys. You get too many Conor McGregors, you're not going to have a UFC because what's going to happen is they're going to band together and they're going to crush it. So,
I think if you build it's the same thing with what I think the NFL has done. I think that UFC has built itself to a big enough stature that you're going to have those outliers and stuff. And if one guy tries to go do it, he's not going to take down the UFC. But if you start letting those guys do that, I think the audience builds so fast that they are. It's Mahomes did a collaboration with a reel and everything on Instagram with Walmart. He has more Instagram followers than Walmart.
I remember you telling me that.
Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But, like, you start looking at those things, and I don't think it's bad for a sport. It's like NFL, every team has their own content creators on staff to do video and photos and everything, and you know the players aren't allowed to even use that.
Yeah, you were saying that.
The NFL doesn't want those guys to win. They don't want those guys to blow up because, once again, you're giving them the keys. But these guys are getting smart enough now that they're saying, like, hey, we're making money. Let's reinvest in ourselves. We're building a brand.
Yeah.
That our brand is going to be worth something because same thing in fighting. These guys can't fight their whole entire lives.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, I think all that. And I think that it could happen. I think you're fighting way bigger animals than that, you know, because we're not anywhere close to the UFC. But we definitely see that, and it does help us as a whole. But I think transitioning over, you go from a really good middle road show like ours or upper, you know, right up under them, to signing a contract that they own every single likeness of you, everything you do. Like it's I just don't know, man. I don't think until someone challenges the UFC, or if someone ever does, I don't know if you'll ever have that, because I think they've figured it out, you know, being owned by ESPN and all that how to manipulate it enough to where, like, if somebody's too big of a problem, you're out the door.
Well, it's kind of like WWE
when
John Cena came out, and almost all of his earnings, the WWE is 25% of it.
Yeah.
Anything and everything. But when he came out, he's like, I don't knock him for it.
Yeah.
He's like, without them, I wouldn't be where I'm at.
Yeah.
And he's like 75% of what I'm getting now is better than 0% of any of this.
And I agree with that, but, like, going back to, like, if you really look at fighters pay in the UFC, it's shit, bro. Like, they can say these guys are making all these millions. Yeah, the 1%. The rest of them, the guys that are barely at the top 10 that are making maybe 100 and 100, and they're, you know, maybe fight 2 times a year, and they won one, lost one. You made $200,000, but by the time you pay your manager, by the time you pay your coach, by the time you pay, you made nothing. So that's the sickening thing when it comes to the UFC now. And, like, the one thing that you do hear the rumblings about, the thing Conor McGregor's bringing, I mean, a fighters union, or, like, pay him right. You're making, I mean, I don't even know what ESPN makes. I don't know what the UFC makes, but I guarantee it's way more than what we think. And they could pay the fight. Look at boxing. Look at what McGregor made off boxing. That's where he made his money. He didn't make his money. I mean, he's made some money off the UFC, don't get me wrong. But I think the most back in the day was like $7 million. He made, like, what, $90-some million off the Mayweather fight? Like, come on.
I think what boxing has done is boxing has leveraged these people's audiences.
100%. They're smart.
You have Mayweather step into a ring. Guess what? Mayweather's selling that whole entire stadium out himself.
Yeah.
Like, you put that dude in there, it doesn't. The fights that are happening, 4 fights before him, that dude ain't getting paid dick.
But look at what he did, though. His promotion, his terms, to my knowledge, I think Showtime just dropped Bellator, and I think they dropped boxing. I don't think they're showing it, so I don't know who's showing boxing now. But they made him so big that he's such an animal. It's like it's that fine line.
Yeah,
you know what I'm
it's
saying?
a catch-22,
Yeah.
but, like, I look at it as if the UFC had 10 Conor McGregors, UFC would be 20 times the
soccer.
size.
It'd be soccer.
It would be. Like, if you're going to go play in that, like, and that's the thing is, I feel like it's a give and take a little bit that, yeah, sometimes those people are fearful of having someone that plays at their level up there. But it's like, and they want to, like, try to compress them, but it's like, sometimes just let those people go and let's ride at the top together.
Let a peacock be a peacock.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But
let's all just go start throwing stuff at buses. Let's go.
But you watch what McGregor did. Every time he figured out how to get the news on every news station.
Yeah.
Oh, the second he was off one, he did something, and it's on every news station again, and he's not paying for any of it.
Yeah. How are you going to get on TMZ, on every... He's on CNN, he's on Fox, he's on everything that they're talking about. And it's not even sports channels are talking about, like, what charges is he going to get, like, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, Sports Center, ESPN, any channel you turn on. And I'm like, do you know what you would have to pay
Oh my God.
to go get that reach?
You couldn't.
And he just threw a chair through a bus window instead and got it, like.
Yeah.
So it's
Punched
like,
an old man in the bar.
yeah.
Then he's
something.
like 2 weeks later, he's like, I should drop my own clothing line.
And here's my whiskey back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I definitely think that there's. I think that's in every sport.
I think that's kind of like, not to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
I think that's why we hooked up. I think there's a lack in what I don't want to say lack. I think there's a space that we can bring together and take it and elevate it even more. Like I said, me and Joe are a great duo. I mean, now we need to make it a trio and really help us get the guys out, get the Mikey Englands, get Gages, stuff like that that are getting ready to fight. I mean, those kids are the future of the sport. They're there. So if they have that marketability and we can help them a little bit, we're down for that. You know what I mean? So that helps us. That helps them. Same thing. Teach one, bring one. So.
Yeah, and I think if you take the approach to help others, we've always taken that approach in business, and it's panned out great for us. I think in athletics, the same thing can be done. Do you help those guys out and you build them to who they're supposed to be? Guess what? Out of every 10 that you build and they become the greats, there's going to be 3 that forget about you.
Yeah.
But there's going to be 7 that they're like, these are the guys that built this. These were the guys that gave me the resources. These were the guys that helped me get there. And there are going to be people that it sucks sometimes when we have those businesses that we do everything for. That shit on us at the end.
Yeah.
That we helped them go from one location to X amount of locations, everything, and it's like a bunch of empty promises our direction, and then it's just like that happens. That's the nature of what it is. But it's also we have those other companies that we're the ride or die now.
For sure.
And it's like that holds so much more weight than that. That one company goes that way, I'm not going to lose sleep over it.
Well, and that's where we've probably done the most growth for FAC is like the guys love fighting for us. They know they're going to have a class act show. They know they're going to be taken care of. They're going to have a great space to do their business. So, and I do agree with that. I mean, 100%. So.
No, I think I see the future in the fighting space changing soon. That people are catching on to it now in sports all over the world. And I think that the fighting space is coming. I think it's going to be really cool to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And seeing how certain people can leverage it differently.
Yeah, I mean it's really cool to see what the UFC is doing. I mean they're putting their performance institutions all over the world, so people can come train for free, stuff like that in Mexico. I mean like rural places. It's crazy, Africa, all over, and it's seeing the talent that's actually out there that doesn't have the ability to. So I mean that's a really cool space. That's something they are doing. It's pretty awesome.
Well, no, I think a lot of things are going in the right direction there. Nick's fight coming up December 1 at Cable Dahmer. So you'll be getting blown up with Facebook ads and
Let's
Instagram
go.
ads for the
Let's
next
go.
2 weeks. So
Let's go.
at the end of each podcast, because we talked in the beginning that this could be a podcast to go on for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
I could literally talk about car sales for 2 hours.
I love it.
But at the end of each podcast, I always kind of take that one final question, and it's if you could go back to your 20-year-old self and tell yourself one thing, what would it be?
don't ever regret where you came from.
I like that.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. I think that was probably the number one thing that haunted me, man, forever, is like thinking things that happen to me instead of for me, you know, no matter how rough they are. So that's probably what I'd say. Just sack up and just go.
Yeah. Every single thing in our lives happens for a reason.
100%.
And it puts us exactly where we were supposed to be when we're supposed to be there.
Yeah. I
So,
yep.
I like that one a lot. I cannot thank you enough for coming on the podcast.
Appreciate it, guys. Appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. The first time we sat down, I think that meeting was like 3 hours long.
Lunch.
We probably should have just grabbed some mics and mic'd up there. We could have had multiple podcasts already just from our conversations.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited where the future is going to go with everything that we have working right now, and
I am too.
you have a lot of good things going. So
Appreciate it. Appreciate it, guys.
Keep busting ass, and you're someone too that I've heard a lot of great things about you from a lot of great people that I respect. So
Appreciate it.
that holds a lot of value to me.
Yeah.
So
You guys are killing it too, man. Like I'm telling you, man, it's really cool to watch how fast and how much you guys have progressed so quickly. You know what I mean? Your guys' stuff it's on point, man. People are taking notice, so it's really cool.
that's putting all the right people in the right place at the right time. And
There you go.
I got a phenomenal team standing with me, so they're the ones that make it all happen every day.
They make you pretty.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say that's the M3 podcast. Once again, thanks for joining, and I'm gonna key Ricky. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the M3 Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Want to learn more? Check us out on Instagram at Moss Marketing Group, on Facebook at Moss Marketing 58, or on our website at mossmarketinggroup.com.